record then. I got it.
Okay, I can't see where to do it. Okay, I can.
I've got it tonight. I'll send it.
Okay, I just saw it. Okay.
I'll record tonight.
You messed me up when you came on ahead of time, so I see it now.
All right. All right, I wanted to start out tonight with this email that came in just a few minutes ago. A student had a paper returned in one of the other sections. Said the work was in the instructor coach said the work was in the paper, but it wasn't where it was expected to be, and wanted to know if that's okay. And the answer is no, that's not okay. There's a reason why we have you follow the format. When these people get your paper to grade, these state graders, they have a grading rubric that pops up on half of their screen, and then they have your paper on the other half of the screen. And they just go down the line through your paper against the rubric. And if it's not where it's supposed to be, for their purposes, it's not there. So that's a caution again as we begin the APTEL. You don't have to use my templates or our templates, but you still have to have the task in order and the things in those tasks as required. They're not going to look for it. If it's not in place, they count it as not being there, and they'll return it as less than proficient. So just as a reminder again, you don't have to use our template, but everything has to be in the order that it's supposed to be in. The state graders will not hunt things. And that speaks to also those section headings. It should be right there. If the next thing on their rubric says that they should be looking for this, there better be a section heading with that in it. They're not going to pick it out of a big long narrative. That's not the way they work. They get paid by the piece to grade these things, not by the hour. And so they have a certain amount of time that they allot themselves to grade these things. And the easier that you make it on them, the better grades you'll get. I've been real pleased with the grades we've been getting back. But there's a reason why that you're getting good grades. Number one, you're doing good work. But number two is you're following the format, and you're making it easier on your graders. So, again, a word to the wise, make sure you follow the format. All right. Okay. All right. All right. Back to, so I'm going to pick up, Dr. Stedman wrote the agenda for tonight, so I'm going to pick up with APTEL Task 1 and 2. We covered, when we were last with you, we covered APTEL Task 1. I'm going to remind you, I'm under the template, which is under template and materials in the main menu. When you see under task 1, prompt number 1, when you see these bullets, that's what I was referring to. That needs to be the heading of a section, and there needs to be narrative for each one of these. Don't just lump them together in one big narrative. That doesn't get good scores, and sometimes gets your paper returned. Just as a reminder, when you see bullets like this, that means I should have a section with that narrative in it. When you identify your best practices or your survey for school-wide leadership, you need to be reminded, you need to reference where it came from. If it's Todd Whitaker's, if whoever it is, Marzano's got one. I mean, wherever you got it, you need to reference where it came from. And when you're doing your best practices checklist as a classroom leader, if it's the walkthrough instrument for your district, that's fine. If it's Marzano, that's fine. But again, reference where you got it. I saw a couple that I reviewed that did not tell us where it came from. You can't just make one up.
It must be research based.
It's not been validated. You know, the two standards in research-based documents or in materials that are research-based are validity and reliability. Reliability is how you actually use the instrument. You use it as designed, and you use it the same for everybody. Validity is, does it measure what it's supposed to measure? There are 7 types of validity. These instruments have to have been validated through a process so that we're sure that they measure what they measure. You can't just make up surveys. You can't just make up checklists. It has to be research-based. Either you found it in the research that you did or it's the one used in your district. And you have to tell us where it came from. So I've seen a couple of those, and I've commented on them that you need to reference where your materials came from.
Dr. Lamb, also, if you find a good instrument, you don't always have to use the entire instrument. You can pull parts, as long as it's validated in research, you can pull the parts that you need for what you're doing. It doesn't have to always necessarily be doing the entire thing.
Okay, so Matt wanted to know Charlotte Danielson model. That's fine. That's fine. We did our collaborative partners this afternoon, and the superintendent from Lincoln County Schools, Dr. Lori Morrow, was on, and she asked me what we're doing to get you folks in the classroom to do walkthroughs, and I told her she could join our class tonight, and I was address that again. These superintendents, that's one of the things that they're really want us to make sure that we have you do these walkthroughs. Now, again, you don't have to do everybody on your staff. What you're supposed to do is 3 or 4, and then you take your data and you add that to the data from the walkthroughs from your administrative team to get an idea of what your faculty is doing in terms of the number of best practices that they're using, so that you can customize a professional development plan that meets the needs of your faculty. In terms of individual, do we need to go over all the best practices, just certain ones that we aren't using? That's what those walkthroughs are for. I hope some of you are going into the Google Drive and assessing some of those mini lessons that those undergraduates are doing. That's good practice. Watching those videos and looking at those little lesson plans, it doesn't take long. I hope that you're going in there and doing that to get you ready to do these walkthroughs. I know that you can't go out and do dozens of them, and if you're not prepared, the first 2 or 3 kind of go whizzing by. I'll be quite honest with you. It's been a while since I've done walkthroughs myself as an administrator, and I'm kind of out of practice.
Well, Dr. Lamb, when we had to do walkthroughs, all of this modern technology, some of this stuff was not available. And just like what was shared with us 2 weeks ago, where they could go in and find these. There's a lot of instruments that help them with their walkthroughs now that's out there.
Yeah, you've got pads and tablets, and all those kinds of things. But for me, even if I had if it's a paper checklist or whatever, what happens to me until I get, kind of get back in practice, I get caught up in watching what's going on more than documenting what's going on. And you have to train yourself to be a trained observer when you go in that room. You can't get hung up on watching what's happening. You have to be able to script. We used to have to script them.
Yes.
You don't have to script them anymore, but you got to be paying attention, because your memory's not as good as you think it is from going in. Did I see this or did I see that? Again, I think if you will utilize these undergraduate mini lessons, it will get you, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Did I see that or didn't I see that? And you'll get in the habit of being an observer rather than just a watcher, that you're observing with a purpose. You know, that I think that adds value to your clinical experience. Okay.
Dr. Lamb, Dr. Morrow, if I'm not mistaken, the superintendent you mentioned, she is a product of Gardner-Webb University.
She is.
She used to be at Davidson County and superintendent there. I met her.
She is. She's actually a personal friend of mine.
Yes.
I've known her for about 22 years. I've known her on a personal level, and I'm very glad that we have her working with us on our collaborative team. And I think we're going to make a move to get her to do some adjunct work for us in the LS program.
That would be great.
But we had a number of superintendents on with us today. Dr. Laws from the doctoral program and me from the master's program. We ran a leadership collaborative meeting today. And one of the things that you need to understand is when we have you do these things, when we have you do these evidence artifacts, when we have you do these clinical experiences, we didn't just make this stuff up. We based it on executive standards, state competencies, and your clinical experience are based on the things that your potential employers want us to make sure that you had experience in while you're in this program. Our folks get hired because our folks, we're responsive to what the employer wants. And so we had Jeff Booker from Gaston County Schools was on with us today. Lori Mara from Lincoln County Schools was on us today. We had the superintendent from Spartanburg District 5 was on with us today. The Cleveland County School Superintendent, Dr. Stephen Fisher, was on with us today. We had Dr. Robin Hamilton, who's a principal in Wilmington at Parsley Elementary. She was on with us today. We had a lot of folks on today. The superintendent from Rutherford County Schools could not be with us today, but I've been working with her over the last 2 weeks, helping her with a search for a new administrative person. So understand that we stay hooked in to all these school districts regularly. Dr. Stedman works the eastern part of the state, and I work the western part of the state, and we kind of split up South Carolina in terms of being in touch with all of these big folks who are hiring. And we ask them, what do you want? What do you want us to do with these people? What will make our folks attractive to you as potential employees? It's kind of futile to go through this whole process if you can't get a job. And so when we talk about going and doing these evidence artifacts, we're not just having you do them to put a check in the box. It's the experience of doing them and the things that you can sit and talk with a potential employer about. And so again, these walkthroughs are very important. And that's what, that's where we are up to tonight. You need to go out and collect that data. You need to survey for leadership opportunities outside of the classroom, but you need to be now going out and doing your walkthroughs to collect that data on best practices in the classroom. It not only will help you complete this task of this evidence artifact, it's going to be an excellent experience to talk to a potential employer about. And again, that Google Drive that we have a link to in our class shell will help you in that as well to get some experience doing those before you actually go out and start doing your walkthroughs. So,
Dr. Lamb, and as a reminder, having gone through the APSO already, there's a lot of things that Dr. Lamb and I should not have to deal with as you are doing the APTEL. The little things that we had to keep sending back or we had to remind you of, this is what we shouldn't have to worry about that now. You should have learned those lessons. And when we see you doing the APTEL, we should not have to revisit those issues that we revisited for. So be very, very cognizant of that as you're submitting your work.
In particular, to amplify Dr. Stedman's comments, in particular, make sure you aren't uploading incomplete work. If there's 2 prompts to a task, make sure that you've included both prompts before we review it. Our time's getting short. It's already Halloween.
Dr. Lamb, remind them what we talked about, that we were very patient. with the grading this time, but with the APTEL, we're not going to be as lenient with giving them credit for work that we have to keep sending back.
Well, for example, and that's why I'm here. There's 2 prompts here for your task 2. There's 2 prompts. If you submit work in Blackboard and only one of the 2 prompts is there, we're going to give you the grade for that. And so if it's really good and you've got 1 prompt, we'll give you a 50. But now the deal going forward is when we get to the second round here with the APTEL, when you put the other half in, you're still going to get a 50. We're not gonna update your grade on it. That's going to be the tax for not following the directions. I heard that again today. Can you tell these people? Can you work with these people? Can you convince these people that we're looking for folks who can follow directions? That seems to be our biggest problem. Is we get young people who won't follow the directions. When I say young people, I don't mean that in a pejorative sense. I mean that they're young to the business. They have this notion that, that as long as everything comes out all right in their end, it's all good. Well, that's not the way. The superintendent needs to have confidence in you that if they tell you to do A, B, and C, that you're actually going to do A, B, and C. They'll give you tasks sometimes that have some discretion in them, but they'll also give you tasks that there is no discretion, and that's for reliability purposes. Let me speak to that. When we do this district-wide initiatives, it's very important that we all implement them with fidelity the same way so that we can tell how they work, that everybody follow the directions. That's called reliability, that everybody did it the same way, so that we're sure that the results that we get are reliable from one end of the district to the other. And so there'll be times when the superintendent will give you things to do as a principal. They'll give you discretion as to how you do them. There's going to be other times when they tell you this has to be done this way. They have to be confident in you that you're going to follow the directions as stated. And you'll know that if you don't know that, you'll ask, do I have discretion to do this a particular way I want to, or the way that we would find best at our school? Or is there a particular way that you want us to do this? So again, it goes back to follow directions, the first time. Make sure that you get it right. All right, I'm going to stop and answer some questions now.
Dr. Lamb, while you're looking at the questions, just be reminded with evidence 2, you're going to have a new cover page for it. Just remember your background information about the school and community, your school profile, unless there's something you want to add differently, that's going to be consistent with evidence 2. So you don't have to go back and recreate that. So you will submit that. So the only thing is your title page will be, the only thing different is it'll say APTEL 2 and your name here. You'll put your name there, and then your background about your school and community, your profile, and then you move on to actually task 1.
All right. So here are the questions. Julie says, my instructional tech facilitator leads instructional rounds. She offered to do several just for the 2 of us during my planning. Our district has been doing these for years. We have an observation tool we use in-house. Is this okay? It's exactly what we've been referring to. If your district has a standard form, we'd like for you to use it. If they'll let you, that's great. Just tell us it came from Rutherford County Schools. That's wonderful. That's exactly what we're talking about. Walkthroughs used to be optional. Walkthroughs are now mandated by the state. This is the reason why we're putting so much emphasis on this. You're going to be doing walkthroughs pretty much every day the rest of your career once you get an administrative job. Unless you're in a very small school, you're going to be doing walkthroughs every day. 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, every day of your career. This is going to be something that you've got to get proficient at quickly to get good at it. And you've got to understand that when you're signing on for an administrative job, this is going to be one of those everyday things. Teacher observation and teacher walkthroughs are going to be an everyday thing. If you don't like this, this is not the job for you. That's why I'm stressing this so hard. This is one of those things that folks just can't seem to find time to do. Well, if you can't find time to do these because you don't, and the real reason is because you don't like it, this is not the profession for you. This is the heart of what we do every day, is we get in those rooms and we monitor that instruction. And instruction informs assessment, assessment informs outcomes, outcomes inform instruction again, and it's a continuous improvement model. It never ends. It's a continuous improvement model. And the heart of it is observation and walkthroughs. If you don't like these, this is not the job for you. And that's why we're stressing these so hard. I do walkthroughs often, create a Google document as an example. Is there an example for the AppTel and Blackboard? No. No example on this one. I've got one, but I'm not going to give it to you. You've got the template. You need to, again, we're weaning you back. When you get to 603 next semester, we're going to give you a template on the OMA, but it's not going to have examples in it. And then when you get through with that one, that's the end of the templates. We get you through halfway with templates. We get you through the first one with an example. This is we plan to, it's a planned abandonment. It's called a planned abandonment. It's an adult learning theory. And that's what we do with you. We give you a lot of support in the beginning, and then we pull back because we want you to emerge as leaders. Dr. Stedman and I already done it. The 25th of the month, I get a check for retirement every month. I've already had my career. Our job is to prepare you for your career. So we give you a lot of support, and we'll support you always. But if we keep you immature in this process, where we're always doing it for you, then you'll never emerge as the leader that you need to be. We don't want you to be good when you get out in the world. We want you to be great. It's important that you get a job and do well in that job so you can pay my Social Security. See, I paid somebody else's when I was young, and now when Dr. Stedman and I qualify for ours, we hadn't taken it yet. We're waiting for y'all to get jobs making big money and pay more in, so our Social Security will be more.
Yeah.
So we have a vested interest in your success.
4 more years, Dr. Lamb. 4 more years.
You gonna wait that long?
I'm going to hopefully wait. You and I are in this thing together, remember?
Yeah, all right, 4 more years, I guess it is. I was thinking 3.
No, we've got 4.
All right, if we use the checklist that our district uses, do we put the main points of the checklist where the template has Marzano's list, or are we discussing each of the main points within the? You don't have to use Marzano. Marzano is just an example. You only list the one that you're using. You don't have to adjust your list to Marzano. Marzano is just the standard list that all other lists are made off of. But you replace mine with yours. You do not have to adjust your work to Marzano. Remember, the red is just an example. That follow directions, not the example. Follow the directions, not the example. The example is just what it said. It's an example.
Dr. Lamb, go back up to task 1.
Okay.
Let's move back up. And I'm reflecting this on what we did last time. Go back down. Okay, under prompt 1. Okay, now you see that there are under prompt 1 there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bulleted areas, 5 boxes. And again, Dr. Lamb said all 5 boxes need to be addressed narratively. This is your research. This is your literature review. For each of those areas, there should be a minimum of 3 references. So that would be 15 references minimum for that section. Again, 3 references for building efficacy and empowerment among staff. With your literature review, there should be a minimum of 3 references with your literature review on that. And that is for 3 for each of those areas for a minimum of 15 references for prompt number 1.
Okay.
Samanja, I remember seeing that, and that prompted me to go back and look at my notes from last semester.
All right, and so then again, these are just two examples. There are many more. Your checklist must come from research reference and should not be candidate made due to validity and reliability issues. If you're using the one from your district, you just replace the ones that I have here. You don't have to interpolate them or feed one into the other or fold one in the other. You use yours. Let me go back to the questions. Okay. Okay, I've already answered that. If we did our lit review as one piece and did not break it down into those highlighted points, that's exactly it. Again, no, that's not how the grader wants it. If you did your literature review and it's one big narrative, you've got to break it out into those 5 bullets. Make it easy for your grader. They're expecting a section that says building efficacy. I can't get that to move. And empowerment among staff. They're expecting to see a section that says that. They're expecting to see a section that says results-oriented professional development. Again, make it easy for your grader.
Well, Dr. Lamb, not just the grader, but for you and me too, because with 75 students, we don't have time to have to pick and go in and pick it out. We need to be able to look at it as well.
Okay. How many literature reviews do we need to do for each bulleted section of prompt 1? He said 3, so that'd be a total of 15. Is the school profile in the app tell similar to the one for the app? It's the same one. It's a copy and paste. That's simply execute your school profile in this one with your mouse. Copy, paste. It's the exact same school profile. No templates. We can do it. Yay. We work in education. None of us get big money. If you go far enough, there's big money. We were looking at superintendent salaries today. The average superintendent salary in North Carolina is $157,000. Some of them make in excess of $200,000. Nobody makes less than $100,000. That's what we want. We want you to not just stop at the principal's office. We want you to become superintendent, make big money. Do we have to discuss the different things in our list? No, you just present your checklist. If it's research-based, good to go. You don't have to explain any differences. All right. Got it, thanks. Got it. School profile. I saw your email. Last time I thought you mentioned we could do an annotated bibliography. You can. It's up to you. That's why I didn't give you an example on this one. That's why we didn't give you an example. You might want to do it as just a narrative with references, like a literature review, or you can do an annotated bibliography. That's up to you. That's where you get to show your range or your individuality or your how you think it best conveys the information. All right.
Dr. Lamb, Julie sent me a question, or you both of us a question, but let me address it with everybody. There's going to be some work that you do sometime that is going to appear to, when it goes into Turnitin, it's going to give you maybe a high number, but we haven't, just like Julie mentioned her school profile because, she authored that and worked on that. We understand that there's some basic things that may make it look the numbers high, but we could, Dr. Lamb and I understand that when we look at it. So it is not, that would not be a form of plagiarism.
No.
So know that you'll be okay with that. And I said that openly, Julie, because everybody needs to understand that.
That the number goes up on this one as well. We get a number, a percentage of what you do that matches. We have a threshold for the app sale at 30. it goes up for the AppTel because you're beginning to add things that you've done before in the app cell. It goes up to 40 now. And so as long as it's under 40, we don't even glance back. And if it's over 40, we open it up and look and see. And if it's because of work that you copied from yourself or the format or the directions, then that's not a problem. So again, your standard was 30 for the app cell. Your standard will be 40 for the AppTel because you're including your school profile. So yes, we're well aware of how that works. All right, so you have identified your documents that you're going to use. You're now going to write your literature review, and then you're going to present your data. Now, again, I can't stress this point enough. You're only going to do 3 or 4 walkthroughs. You're not going to have that much data. But what you're going to do is you're going to take your 3 or 4, and you're going to sit down with your administrative team, whoever your site mentor is, and say, this is what I saw during my 4 walkthroughs. What does it look like when you do all of the walkthroughs? Now, they don't have to give you individual data on the individual teachers unless they want to. But you're going to put your data with theirs. Now, if you do a survey, you'll survey the entire faculty, so you won't have to ask them that part. If you survey for activities, leadership activities outside the classroom, but again, you cannot survey for classroom best practices because everybody will tell you that they're the wizard teacher of all time. No, that's an IQ test. Who's going to be dumb enough to say, I don't use best practices in my classroom? You know, I could say something ugly, but I better stop. But nobody's going to be that dumb. You have to go in and check and see what they're doing. Again, fidelity checks, formative assessment. Are the adults delivering instruction as intended? And then you take your data from your 3 or 4 walkthroughs and you put it with the administrative data, and you can kind of figure out, well, you know, non-linguistic representation, hardly anybody does that. So we need to work on that maybe in PLCs, or maybe, you know, not too many people are doing a lot of these things. We better do some whole group, or we've got some young people that are struggling. We might better do some one-on-one with them. And so your professional development plan has to take all those things into consideration. But the heart of your professional development plan is this data. What's going on in the classrooms? This is not about what to teach. This is about how to teach. You know, one of the things that I caution students about, candidates at this stage, don't be getting in big, deep philosophical discussions and conflicts and arguments about Common Core or what the curriculum is. Your job as a school administrator or school-based administrator is the instructional delivery, not the content. You know, whether it's Common Core or the standard course of study or what it is, that's not your issue. Your issue is how they teach, not so much what they teach. That's mandated. You have to make sure they're teaching it. But the big thing is if you want instructional improvement, you've got to improve how they teach, the methods that they use to convey the information to students. And feedback and assessment drive that loop. It informs instruction. And so that's what you're doing here. So because the next thing you're going to do is you're going to develop a teacher empowerment leadership growth plan. And if you'll remember, I added under materials that MTSS for teachers. See, that's my growth plan. That's the one that I use when I go out and I work in schools and districts that are working on instructional improvement. That's the model that I use with them. You probably have one better than mine, but that one is tried and true. I developed that one in practicality to work with low-performing schools that we go out and work with, folks that need help. That's one of the things that we go out, we do the basics, how to teach. That's how we start. When we go out and work with restructuring schools that aren't doing well, First thing you do is make sure everybody is teaching well and using best practices. That's, your school may be beyond that, and you can customize it to what you find in your school. And again, in that growth plan, I should see some evidence that what how a growth plan ought to be put together in terms of how do you present staff development. Linda Darling Hammond, she's the guru on staff development. There's 3 basic modalities. I like to see all 3 in a plan: one-on-one, small group, and whole group. I like to see whole group used sparingly, but it has its place. I don't like to see all day whole group. I like to see short sessions. But when you're figuring out your plan, it should be based on your data, what your data tells you. It can't just be some stock plan that you run every year. Your growth plan should be based on what your data tells you we need to work on and how we need to work on it. If you've got 90% of your faculty that needs work in these areas, you better be doing some whole group. If only 10% need a lot of work, we better be doing small group and one-on-one. And then we could do some combination of each. But we're asking you to customize your professional growth plan to meet the needs of the folks that you have. What is your specific situation? And then when you come up with your plan, again, each one of these bullets should be a section, just like before. Yes, there's that old graphic organizer where you're going to write your growth plan out in an action plan format. So that should get you through task 2, both prompts, and task 3. I'm going to pause now and let Dr. Stedman go. I'm through.
Okay, Dr. Lamb, we received a question from a student today that asked about the Zoom session for the AppTel. Now, we are only requiring 1 Zoom session, and it basically, we said with task 1. But now I will tell you, when we look at your Zoom video, we don't want you just regurgitating what you put on that form. You should be talking about the AppTel. Now, wisdom would say that while we said it's task 1, you saw how we have linked basically in our conversation today the entire AppTel. That basically should be your conversation, and as a team, I would think that your conversation would be, supporting each other and helping each other after you've looked through it. How can we, Michelle may think of something that Carla may not think of. And, as you're talking about it, things that's going to really enhance the final product when you get through with it. So, make sure that when you do have your video session, your Zoom video session, make it count, make it get as much out of that meeting as you can that will help you successfully complete the AppTel.
Mm-hmm.
So, we said task 1, but we're not as long as it's about the AppTel, we don't care, do we, Dr. Lamb?
Mm-hmm. Just looking at, you can make connections and you can see the big picture and understand why we have you do what you do, the value of it. I mean, assessment. You've got to assess what's going on in your building, and you have to put a plan in place to move you from where you are to from your current state to your desired state, and you have to have a plan that moves you there. I'm going to say it because I say it every week. Hope is not a plan. Well, I hope these teachers get better. You have to plan for them to get better. And it has to be, and it's a continuous thing. It never ends. Again, if you don't like doing walkthroughs and you don't like working professional development plans, get out now. That's the business that we're in. It's instructional improvement, instructional delivery. That's our sausage. At Jones Sausage, what do? They make sausage. What do we do in public school? We teach kids. That's the heart of what we do every day, and we can't forget that.
And if you don't improve instruction, and you can you know what we're dealing now in evidence 2, if the action plan cannot make a difference there, then you're wasting your time with everything you identified in evidence 1. It's all about our students and student achievement. Well, evidence 2, if there's problems there, we've got to fix evidence 2. We got to fix the problems there if we're going to take care of what we identified in evidence 1. So you need to begin making the connection. Evidence 1 does not stand by itself. Evidence 2 does not stand by itself. You're going to see that how all of these evidences over the course of the 3 semesters begin to link together. Everything works together so that in the end, we can improve student achievement and your school is going to get better.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what it's all about.
And one of the things that we're going to do next semester is we're going to teach you how to link your school improvement plan to your master schedule, to your budget, so that your budget and your master schedule support your instructional initiatives. Again, we don't just make a budget going eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Our school budget needs to be based on our priorities. Our priorities are our school improvement plan. And, if reading is our emphasis this year, we should be putting our school budget behind reading. And we should be organizing our master schedule so that reading is featured. Who teaches reading? Our best reading teachers. They teach it the longest amount of time. How to put everything that we do, even when we organize, even when we're doing operations. Even when we're doing operations, they're supposed to support instruction. That's who we are. That's what we do.
Dr. Lamb, I will remind you, evidence 2, I think you're already seeing it's more cumbersome. You were introduced to the whole process with evidence 1 with the APSL. But evidence 2 is going to take you more time. So you don't need to waste any time. You've got to delve into this, and you've got to go ahead and get started. Don't wait till the last minute, because if you do, you're going to get frustrated and you're going to find yourself not doing good work. You've got to work this thing along and pace yourself. So please make sure that you don't put it off. Dr. Lamb, that's all on the APTEL that at this point. I
have one more question here. Should you do different grade levels on your walkthroughs? That's always a good idea to get as broad a picture as you can. It can be district-based, Julie. That's absolutely right.
And do as many as they'll allow you and that you're able to do.
Yeah, but yeah, your APTEL can be district-wide. That's absolutely correct. It can be.
Right.
We're just interested in the process that the process of how you do it.
Right.
You can apply the process to a school or a school district. When you get to be the superintendent, you'll apply pretty much this same process to your school district. That's just like, that charge session from DeFore on PLCs, that document teaches you how to supervise and run and organize multiple PLCs as a principal. So yes, these same lessons are used in bigger venues. So yes, you would use this same system for a district.
And Dr. Lamb, also just be reminded, we're only requiring you to submit, that one Zoom session with the APTEL. You can do as many Zoom sessions as your team decides that y'all want to do. We don't need to see that. That's left up to y'all if you want to collaborate with each other at other times, during the development of the APTEL. Dr. Lamb, I will tell you, I was very pleased with the work that they put into the case studies, the case study 1. I saw a lot of thought and a lot of just great, exactly what we asked for, the scholarly dialogue and collaboration. Overall, I was extremely pleased with the results of that. I looked at all 4 classes at things. So
all right, I'm gonna touch on that in just 1 minute. There's a question here, Dr. Stedman, from Eleanor.
Okay.
You can address that.
Okay, I don't see that.
What do you mean by what's in the parentheses? Aptel Task 1 Zoom conference link due to assignment Dropbox, 1 Zoom session for both tasks. This is from the weekly schedule.
Okay, it's no different than it was with the APSL. Their team has to, you know, as they are developing task 1, they're going to do another Zoom session. They'll have a Zoom master, a Zoom session. They will schedule a time that y'all will come together and you'll talk about, at least at a minimum, task 1 of the APTEL. And that's what we just finished discussing. You can talk about, you know, any process of the development of the APTEL, you know, during that session, but it will be recorded. But it's an opportunity to basically dialogue with each other and to assist each other with, you know, some good assistance as you are moving forward with the development of the APTEL. That's all that is. It's no different than what you submitted with the APSL. And remember, you had to submit a Zoom session for task 1 and 2 of the APSL. We're only requiring task 1, but you can actually talk about any portion of it, and we'll be okay with it. I hope that answers that question. That's all that is.
Okay, so the case studies are going well. I'm going to wait until after we get toward the end of the semester, and I'm going to give you my opinion on case study 1. What I see is the fallacy in that one, and I hope that by the time we get through this course that you'll be able to point that out to me. So this is kind of you know, some of you have alluded to the fact that he's only doing reading, and that he's ignoring some of the others. But there's to me, there's a bigger issue with that case study that we'll be able to hopefully discuss and maybe and offer differing opinions on at the end. But yes, I've been very pleased with the feedback. I read those too. I've been pleased with those as well.
And my point was that they're doing what we asked them to do.
Absolutely.
You know, they're thinking deeply into it. So the case study number 2 actually is aligned very closely to what you'll be doing with the APTEL. So, you know, just think about lessons learned as you're developing the APTEL, and, you know, that should be your thought processing as you're doing case study number 2.
Okay. All right. Before we close, I was going to mention it as well. I was a long-time CMS employee. Keep the folks in Charlotte-Mecklenburg in mind, thoughts and prayers, especially Butler High School. One of my best friends opened that school in '97. We were high school principals together in Charlotte. Joel Ritchie opened that high school, and we've remained friends all these years. Those folks are hurting. It's a tough time in the district. They had a school shooting, as you know, yesterday. So prayers for them. Not something that you would wish on anybody. Thoughts and prayers with that community. That's exactly right. Dr. Stedman, that's my close tonight. Anything else from you?
I think that's it. That's it. Keep up the good work. And those of you, there's just still a very handful that still owes Dr. Lamb and me some work, and we should be seeing it over the next couple of days.
All righty. Everybody have a good Halloween.
And we're not meeting on Thursday, Dr. Lamb. I don't see a need for it.
I don't see a need to meet on Thursday either. We got a trick or treat tomorrow night. I got a big event tomorrow night. Going to have 500 trick or treaters. I'm spending most of my time growing this beard for Santa Claus. So I'm pretty busy with that. So
after task 1 starts coming in, we'll look and we'll determine whether we need a second meeting down the road. We'll kind of see.
All right, but right now we'll see you next Tuesday.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
Have a good week.